And one of the misconceptions that I had, and which was busted after reading your book, is that I always felt dictators have a cool life. We've got the likes of Robert Mugabe, who died at 95. Gaddafis of the world lived stayed in power for 30 years. They can have sex with anybody, they can have anybody murdered, but not quite. It looks like they are in constant fear of being taken out themselves. Can you tell us about the life of a tyrant?
Yeah. So I think this is a pretty common misconception. People think, oh, they sit in their palace, they can pretty much do whatever they want, they're super wealthy. And some of that is true. A lot of the people are incredibly wealthy, oftentimes even the wealthiest people in their entire country. But one of the key differences between a democracy and these types of tyrannical regimes is what happens to leaders once they lose power. So if you're a German chancellor or, you're a UK prime minister or something along those lines, you're the head of a democracy. When you lose power, you're probably going to be okay, right? You might spend some time golfing, or maybe you enjoy retirement with your family, or perhaps you give speeches to banks. So you're going to be fine. But if you're a dictator, your outlook is very, very different. So when political scientists looked at what happens to personalist dictators, the types of leaders with most power in their hands, they found that more than 2/3 of them are forced into exile, they end up in jail, or they get killed. So the odds of a tranquil retirement for dictators are worse than a coin flip. And, obviously, if you're a Gaddafi or, if you're any of these types of tyrants, you might have not read that statistical analysis. You might not be big on reading academic articles, but it is something that these people feel. And the added complication comes when you realize that the structure of these regimes is also very different. So one of the ways to think about a dictatorship as opposed to democracy is the share of the population that you need in order to take power or to maintain power. So if we go to a place like, let's say, India, if you want to take power in India or you want to maintain power, you require a large share of the population because you need to win elections. And well, in India, obviously, it's also in absolute numbers, it's a lot of people, but the share is also very large. And that's the case for every functioning democracy. But when you get to a place like Kim Jong-un's North Korea, Kim Jong-un may only need, 100 or 200 families in order to maintain power. And that sounds good at first because you think, well, if you only need those 200 families of, soldiers or intelligence officials, that means you can ignore just about everybody else. And to a large extent, that's true. But there's a flip side of that. And that flip side often traps dictators. Because if you're a democratic leader, you can afford to lose a lot of people and still maintain power. But if you're Kim Jong-un and you lose 50 families, you lose 100 families, you are probably going to lose power. And then when you lose power, you might not just lose power, but you may also lose your freedom and also your life. It's a terrifying existence.